You're listening to The Mountain Gardener with local expert Ken Lane. Mountain gardening can be challenging, but with Ken's tips, tricks, and garden advice, you'll reap huge rewards. Now welcome back to The Mountain Gardener.
And welcome to The Mountain Gardener. This is your host, Ken Lane, here every week talking about the landscapes of northern Arizona. And we are in full fall. I mean, actually, we're way beyond the peak of fall color. Many of the trees have finished. The aspens are pretty much the next windstorm. They're going to blow off. Maples are pretty well done. My red maples dropped their leaves. Now, at the nurseries, if you go to your nursery and the tree doesn't have leaves on it, it's okay. You can still plant. Even if we get a cold storm in the next couple weeks, the weather's going to change. That's the outside air temperature. The soil takes weeks and weeks to cool down. It's not until January until the soil around those roots stop or freeze in or get chilly. The trees will actually continue to root for the next month and a half or so. So feel free to plant. You're okay. Even though they don't have leaves, you could still put a new maple in and prepare for next spring's flush of new growth. The benefit of planting in the fall is it will continue to root. You'll set your new leaf buds or flower buds, depending on what it is, and then it will flush out with new growth next spring, and then all that new growth will elongate in your gardens, in your landscape, in your yard, instead of the grower at the farm will push that new growth. They'll actually trim it, shape it, get it to be a little bit fuller, and then they'll ship it to the nursery. And so you're paying for a bigger tree. For the same size tree you could plant now in the fall, it'll be larger next spring, and you'll pay more for that larger tree because it's flushed that spring growth. I don't know if that quite made sense all the way around, but basically it's better to plant in the fall than in the spring. It's a better value to plant in the fall than in the spring, even though it doesn't have foliage on that tree. We're going to go into a lot of evergreen trees, what are living Christmas trees, later in the show. But the point being now, this is what I'm seeing in my own yard. The maples dropped all their leaves. It's just like the driveway is just full of leaves. I'm going to go through and just rake those up. What I do is I take the mower and I just whack them up and fill up the bag, and I go pour those around my roses, around my blackberries, around my raised beds. Mulched up leaves are like black gold. They compost down so nicely. I do find that they compost better. They look more natural. They look more like top-dressed mulch, shredded cedar bark or something, if you chop them up first. Weed whack them or mow them or shred them or something. They break down nicer, and I've been doing this for years and years and adding that to my raised beds, and I've got nice, loamy, rich-looking soil because I've been taking those mulched-up leaves. This is such an opportunity right now, this fall-autumn season, to enrich your gardens. And so to top dress around your shrubs, over that vegetable bed, then you can turn that in 2 or 3 months. So take advantage of it. And I just put them over the driveway, take the mower. I've got an electric mower. It's not very big. And I don't even have a lawn. I have it out there just to, I guess, I can't say that. I do have a lawn. It's just not a grass lawn. It's a creeping thyme lawn. I keep my electric mower for that, and then for mulching up leaves. And so I'll mow my thyme lawn a couple times a year. That's not very much. And I'll mulch my leaves maybe twice this autumn. I'll take all those maples and I'll rake up everything else later. And then I just mulch them, lay them around throughout the backyard. Just it helps increase the health and vitality of your soils. It revitalizes or reinvigorates the nutrients within that soil. So that's what the leaves do. As they break down, they create humic acids and nitrogens, and they feed the mycorrhizal fungi. There's a lot of benefits that I can go into for soil health just by using those leaves. They're like magic. Another thing I did notice, though, the pine trees, you poor folks underneath the ponderosa pines. I've got a couple properties that have ponderosa pines on them. It's like This last couple of weeks, all the needles just dropped. Ooh, the whole property is covered in this 2-inch layer of needles. Needles aren't as good at top dressing. What happens is your pine needles, especially a real long one like a ponderosa or an Austrian pine, they'll drop their leaves, their needles, and they'll interlock on top of each other. And if you get more than, let's say, a couple inches layer of needles, it almost creates a turtle shell effect. It almost sheds the water away from the plant. It does more harm than good. And so be careful. A little bit of pine needles are good. A lot of them, not so good. Pine needles are one that would really benefit from taking them through a shredder or a lawnmower of some sort, cutting them up some, because those long needles, they're very waxy and they take forever to break down. They really are not good at composting, adding to the compost pile, just because they take so long to break down. And so I don't use pine needles per se. They aren't as interesting for me as a gardener. I'm very interested. I really like to go after and rake up and use my deciduous trees, those leafy plants that drop their leaves in the fall after the fall color is all done. That is like garden magic, garden gold. Pine needles, not as much. I'll use them as a top dressing to keep the weeds at bay. I don't work them into the ground as much because they just break down too slowly to really add some real benefit. But as a top dress, to keep your weeds from coming in, seed coming in, it's very, very good at that. Another little tidbit on the pine needles, they are a high fire danger thing. So they burn very easily because that wax in that leaf, in that needle, ignites very easily. So be careful. If you've got a whole bunch of pine needles gathering up out in the gardens, they can be dangerous. Now, with that being said, don't go crazy. There is a benefit. The reason that pines do this natural thing every fall is they'll shed some leaves as they want to suffocate the weeds that will compete underneath their canopy. They want to choke out any competing plants so that all the moisture and nutrients that fall underneath that canopy of that pine tree, it's all theirs. It's a natural defense that pine trees, all conifers really do to protect their space. And so they'll try to bury other plants just with pine needles. Also, it locks in moisture that's in the ground, so it doesn't allow the sun to sunburn the soil. So there's this natural thing that pine trees do. If you rake up all those needles underneath the pine tree, a couple inch layers good, but if you rake them all up and expose the soil, the plant will dry out. The sun will become sunburned. You're making your pine trees more susceptible to pine borers and some other natural flathead borers, that kind of stuff, Ips beetle. It opens them up for possible disease to happen to those. So a little bit of pine needles or mulch around your pine trees to protect the soil, hold the moisture in, keep the weeds out. That's good for the pine trees. It's good for other plants as well. So I spread those out to other plants. I don't throw them away. I use them as a top dressing for other plants. I just don't let them gather more than a couple inch layer on top of the garden or underneath my pine trees. I went into way more detail than I wanted on that, but that's why it's happening. It's happening throughout the mountains. Just put it on your radar and clean up. It's just kind of as my maple finishes dropping all of its leaves, I go through and I take the mower over it, mulch them up, and lay them around my gardens. As the pines get done dropping all of their needles, then I'll take a rake. I'll rake things up, spread out the needles throughout the gardens, and then I'm all done for the season. So slow and steady. I don't try to micromanage or get every single leaf. I think a few leaves are okay, but I don't let the leaves gather up on, let's say, my thyme lawn and suffocate or cause spotting or damage. I don't let them gather up in between my cacti, the prickly pears and some of these, and just mold and decompose inside of my cacti. I don't let them get into my yuccas and just sit there and decompose there. I'll kind of clean them out as they're done dropping. So one-time cleanup and I'm done. And so I'm done for the season. I don't prune yet. I'll prune in another couple months, but I'm just cleaning up right now. Got a lot in store for you this show. Be right back with Lisa Waterslane in the studio.
You're listening to local garden expert Ken Lane, also known as the Mountain Gardener. Ken can be found throughout the week at Waters Garden Center in Prescott. Listen each week as he answers timely garden questions unique to mountain landscapes.
In a new place, it's difficult to know who to trust, how to get help at the house, and which nursery will simply do what they say they'll do.
At Waters Garden Center, we're here to help, in the landscape at least.
Our team of plant ambassadors know your neighborhood, the plants that add color, increase privacy, and add fragrance and beauty.
And we can show you exactly how to plant locally, or we have teams to do all the work for you.
We are Ken and Lisa Lane, and we guarantee our plants will live up to every promise here at Waters Garden Center.
Hi, Ken here with the Plants of the Week and our McMinn Manzanita.
Part of Waters' expanding native selection, this is the big, bold manzanita you find growing throughout Arizona.
A local evergreen growing wild with the classic red bark for a styling, drought-hardy landscape.
Locally grown for local landscapes, this easy care shrub is just $39.
Waters Garden Center, 1815 Iron Springs Road in Prescott, where people who love lots of native plants, they love to shop.
You're listening to The Mountain Gardener with local expert Ken Lane. Mountain gardening can be challenging, but with Ken's tips, tricks, and garden advice, you'll reap huge rewards. Now welcome back to The Mountain Gardener.
And we are in the studio. We've got Lisa Waterslane. She comes each week and just shares what's going on in other people's gardens, so the questions that other people are asking. Welcome, Lisa. Glad you're here.
Well, thank you.
You know, we should share that one story you were telling me. You had the crew out in the front landscape here at Waters Garden Center, just right out by Iron Springs Road. So that soil in the front landscape was being turned up, and you found...
Well, we knew it was probably javelinas digging in it because they love to root around in soil. So we thought, okay, something's probably grubs in the soil. So we went out to check, and lo and behold... lots of grubs in the soil.
Who saw that one coming? A commercial, that's a major intersection. I mean, there's 25,000 cars that go by Iron Springs Road, the nursery every day, and there's javelina out there digging up the landscape. They don't normally do that. So this was new, a new phenomena.
Right.
We were finding these white C-shaped worms, and the solution was...
grub killer.
Yeah, no doubt.
Get rid of those suckers. It's interesting because we kind of been watching that landscape, and there's a few things that have been suffering, and we thought it was irrigation because we've had a problem with the irrigation. And so we just kind of said, oh, it's just irrigation. And so the lesson is don't assume it's one thing because it could be another. So it might have been some irrigation, but I think the grubs have been in there maybe for a while.
Because the grubs, they actually eat the roots off the plants and come at, and just the plant is the same size, same amount of foliage, but less roots. And so you see this wilting issue, but it's a grub. So we treated it with grub killer.
Right.
So there's a granular product you throw down there, water it in, and it just goes through the soil, kills them off. We fertilized the landscape so they can be revigorated. And then we put a soil activator down just to get rid of some of the stress from the less roots. And so soil activator is humic acid, basically, helps encourage new root hairs. And there's plenty of time for the plants to reroot. And they'll root through the end of the year. And so they'll be fine. But you got to get rid of those grubs. As soon as the grubs are gone, the javelina will come in going, hey, who took all the tasty morsels? And they'll go root at somewhere else instead of your landscape.
So javelina will do that, and skunks.
That's true.
So if you have a lot of skunks digging around in your yard, you might want to check. Maybe you've got some grubs hanging out in there too.
So skunks, they leave a little cone-shaped hole in the yard. So you see these, just looks like a little cone, a little tiny hole, and just lots of them. And so they can smell where a grub is. They'll take their little paws, dig out, eat the grub and move on. So if you don't like skunks in your yard, grub killer. No grubs, no skunks. They'll just roam through and go spray the neighbor's dog instead of yours.
And now is a really good time actually be treating for grubs because if you wait too much longer, the colder it gets, the deeper into the ground they go. harder to treat. And then you're just going to have the problem next spring when it warms up again.
So by the new year or so, they'll start digging down deep and they'll hibernate foot and a half, 2 feet down the ground. They'll wait until the soil gets warm and come back up and start eating in March, your yard. So definitely take advantage. You got a month where you've got till second, third week in December where you can do something about them. Kill the grubs, fertilize, treat your landscapes so that they hibernate, go to bed healthy, basically. Grubs, I didn't see that one coming. I was surprised. So I was stunned when you said, oh, it was grubs. I'm going, really?
Yeah.
In my own backyard? The lanes don't have grubs. We take care of them. Well, not anymore, I guess.
We got rid of them. That's right. But I thought, that's a really interesting lesson to listen to your own advice, because we tell people that all the time. If things look like they're struggling, go out there and dig and do some testing, see what's going on underneath the soil. So, pay attention.
So, what other questions we got this
This is kind of like grubs. Same
really?
issue. Brenda wants to know. She lives out in Chino. She wants to know: do gophers take a break in the winter?
Oh, yeah.
Or are they just active year round?
It depends on the winter. They are definitely active now. They're actually more active. I think Chino Valley to Paulden is like gopher heaven. It's like that's where the curse kind of. That's where they started gophers. And so they'll be highly active right now because they're storing up fat. They're kind of like bears or squirrels storing up nuts. They just start eating to get body weight. And then mom kicked out the pups about a month and a half ago. So they're on their own trying to gain enough weight to get through winter. And so they'll be highly active through until the first ground starts to freeze. That won't be until mid-January, sometime in January. So you've got another month and a half of heavy pressure from gophers. We don't have voles. We have prairie dogs up near Williams, and those the higher elevation. We have pocket gophers at the lower elevations. They act similarly. So they're eating the roots off your plants, trying to gain some body weight. When the ground starts to freeze and become hard, permafrost, they'll actually dig deeper, and they'll be about 3 feet under the ground. They'll kind of hibernate for a bit. They're less active. So yes, they're a problem. What to do? You need to kill them. Get them to go away, either by death or by repellents. We do make a Mold Tech. It's a organic repellent made from castor bean oil. You can put that down. It will move them so they go, and it's irritating every time I dig in the garden here. I'll move over there. That's one way to do it. Or you've got traps. Your grandparents use these green traps that kind of pierce their heart. That's a way to do it. There's gas. It's basically a smoke bomb. You threw down the hole. It asphyxiates them. They suffocate and die. Not that effective. If your yard looks like a war zone, I wouldn't suggest that one per se. Or there's poisons you can administer. There's seed they've laced. You put it down in the run where they stumble across and go, oh, free meal. I think I'll take a break here and nibble on this for a while. Don't leave that exposed for your dogs and other animals, but get it under the ground. It's relatively safe. We make a little tool that allows you to really administer it efficiently directly underground. But those are your three ways. A bait, you've got a poison, or you've got a smoke bomb kind of thing. If you have that, come visit us. I'm like a gopher expert. We're used to that one often. I've struggled with gophers on several properties over the years, gotten them off of large acreage. You can do it, but it's war. You got to have the right mindset, and that is, you ain't going to camp out in my gardens. We're going at it right now. 15 rounds. We'll see who stands. At the end, you got to have that mindset. You're taking on gophers. So,
okay. All right. Go to war.
Yeah, go to war.
All right. Monty wants to know, he moved here from Ohio. And in Ohio, he always bought winterizer fertilizer.
Yeah.
So he came here to buy winterizer. And, of course, we don't sell winterizer.
Yeah.
He wants to know, what's up?
Yeah.
Why not?
So we don't, well, we're not chemical folks. So we try to go organic whenever possible, especially with fertilizers. So we make our own. You can't find a good organic fertilizer. They don't make them that are made for northern Arizona. There's all this synthetic Scott's Turf Builder or Ortho Fertilome chemical stuff. And we're drinking groundwater. We just don't believe we should poison our ourselves through our customers selling truckloads of chemical fertilizer. So we make our own organic fertilizer. It's called all-purpose fertilizer. It's 744 mix. Main ingredient is cottonseed meal. It's got some bird guano. We had some iron and sulfur and fairy dust and unicorn horns and all this other great stuff that really works. But it's made for here. The difference between a winterizer formula, they change the chemicals in it. It's mainly using nitrates, so it releases in cool weather. So you got to change the chemicals in it to make it work. That's why if you're using chemicals, you got to use a different type in the summer than you do in the winter. If you're using organic fertilizers, you don't, because as the fungi and the mycorrhizal, as the soil breaks it all down, the worms eat it and digest it and break it up. It releases over a very long period of time, and so it's a natural way where the plant can pick up more of the food. And it doesn't matter whether it's warm or cold, it just works the same. So now you can use one food throughout the yard any time of the year, and it's going to be safer for the birds, safer for you, safer for your pets when they walk across it. It's just safer, and it makes sense. You're not going to taint your wells. It's not going to be picked up by the water shed and taken down and recharged so we get to drink all your lawn fertilizer later. Use an organic food. We sell one. It's called all-purpose plant food. And that's why we choose not to sell winterizer chemicals, period. We sell our own organic fertilizer. Good questions this week. Ken and Lisa Lane and the Mountain Gardeners. If you need more on gophers or fertilizer, whatever, come talk to us. We'll be glad to handhold you right through the whole process. Be right back.
The Mountain Gardener, your source for garden advice right for the higher elevation of Arizona with local garden expert and the Mountain Gardener himself, Ken Lane. Listen in every week for Ken's tips, tricks, and techniques that are guaranteed to make a difference in your yard this season.
If new neighbors are encroaching on your privacy, we have just the solution.
At Waters, we have an entire section of thick, bold plants dedicated to privacy.
Fall is a time to plant a new privacy hedge, and we're here as advisors.
Take a quick measurement and snap a picture before you come visit, and you'll quickly be living in privacy once again.
Plus, our team of experts know how to plant to increase plant growth next spring. We'll show you how or do all the planting work for you.
Waters Garden Center. We know privacy in your backyard. Autumn flowers are nice, but some are absolutely snaptastic.
Waters Orange Flame Snapdragon has been grown exclusively for the Prescott area.
And looks like the plant has orange flames licking the foliage. Snaptastic.
Snapdragons are a natural in mountain gardens with autumn blooms that snap back into bloom again in spring.
Just $7. You'll only find them at Waters Garden Center in Prescott, where garden flowers are snaptastically fun to play with.
You're listening to The Mountain Gardener with local expert Ken Lane. Mountain gardening can be challenging, but with Ken's tips, tricks, and garden advice, you'll reap huge rewards. Now welcome back to The Mountain Gardener.
Something to really watch in the gardens right now. I was sharing this at our managers meeting here at the Garden Center, just staff training. So there's a lot of pressure right now in the gardens, in the landscape, from deer, rabbits, and javelina. And there's multiple reasons why there's increased pressure. Now, this is increased pressure for those of you that don't have neighbors that feed the deer and javelina. So you shouldn't do that. It's not good for the wildlife to learn how to interact with humans that way. It sets them up so that they're much more prone to be shot during hunting season. They can't fend for themselves. There's a lot of reasons why not to do that. I know they're cute. It's nice to draw them in close, but it's not healthy for the animal themselves. It's a disservice. So that's my 2 cents on it. So some of you that are feeding, don't do that. What's happening now is the reason they're coming into neighborhoods is because of the hunt season is on. They've been out on the ranch lands, the Forest Service lands, the BLM lands. All of a sudden, their buddy got killed, and they're moving to where there's not pressure. So they're moving into or migrating into the neighborhoods because you can't shoot within a quarter mile of residents and roads. So that's where they're at. Secondly, the natural stuff they're used to eating, foraging for out in the forest, have dried up. And so they're moving into where there's more food. And so you'll find them eating things they normally have not bothered. All of a sudden they are, because the things they really like, they're not available. And so they're going, well, I guess I'm not going to starve to death. I'll try this for a while. Thirdly, we haven't had rain for a while, so it's gotten dry. And so the moisture that was out there in the forest, out in the ranch lands, have dried up. There's not as much moisture. The moisture that's in the plant materials that they naturally feed off have dried up. And so they're moving into neighborhoods where there's moisture or more moist plants. And so it's kind of multifaceted. But if you're going to plant, let's say, a new tree, a new rose, a new rosemary, a new evergreen, a hedgerow that's for privacy, whatever you're going to do, you can do it. Just realize that you'll get some more pressure from the wildlife if you do that. They take interest. They notice. They see that you put this new thing. It's new in the yard. They've been out there roaming around every night looking at, oh, look, Joe, there's something new over there. Let's go check that out. So they'll have this natural curiosity about that new plant you put in the landscape. If you're planting now and you've got any kind of inkling that maybe wildlife might be might nibble on some of this, I'm encouraging my clients going, now listen, you're right next to the forest. Get some repellent, deer and rabbit repellent, and spritz the foliage so that when they come and nibble on it, they'll go, oh, man, that your repellent has some capsaicin in it, that natural hot pepper stuff. And so they'll nibble on that foliage and go, wow, this is way too hot. My mouth's on fire. Don't eat from this yard. Don't eat that plant. Or some of the repellents have a rotten egg and a nasty taste to them. So they smell it going, whoa, that's nasty tasting, nasty smelling. And when they bite into it, they go, whoa, that's bitter. I don't like that. Let's go to the neighbor's house and eat their stuff. And so just do it before they start nibbling on it. They're going to be curious. They're going to come sniff, smell, see, taste that new planting. Just know that and be proactive on it, not reactive. Once they start figuring out they like it, it's hard to get them off of that plant. And so just some words of wisdom, some things that have helped over the years. That I would say that goes for aspens. It's a great time to plant a new aspen tree, an aspen line of trees, or softening up that west side of your house where it's just so hot in the summer. You need something to shade that part of the house, that bedroom, that bathroom. It's just so hot. Plant an aspen, and it will grow tall and not that wide, even up against the property line. Great time to plant. But some of the deer will come through and they'll rub their antlers on the bark, and they'll rub the bark off, or they'll nibble the bark. They'll kind of chew on it and peel off the bark, and because underneath that bark is this cambium layer, this real sweet tasting sugary bark to it. They'll go, ooh, that tastes good. And they'll nibble. It's also very moist, or after the moisture. And so if you're where deer are, you're going to plant aspens, go for it. But just know, spritz some of this deer and rabbit repellent on the actual bark, and it will keep them from nibbling or peeling off that bark on you. So not just for new plants. If you've got them active in your established aspens, they like fruit trees, your apples or pears or peaches, they'll come in, and now's the time when you see some damage on those plants. When you see it, just spritz that with the deer and rabbit repellent, and that will keep them from coming back and nibbling on your trees. Again, the goal is get them to eat your neighbor's trees, your neighbor's landscape. Have them hang out over there, not in your own yard. Teach them. Every time they come in here, my mouth is on fire with these hot pepper waxed type repellents, or they always taste bitter in my mouth. It takes me days to get rid of this taste out of my mouth because I nibble on her plants, and they're awful. Train them. Keep up with it. Don't let them get used to nibbling and grazing through your yard.
The Mountain Gardener, your source for garden advice right for the higher elevation of Arizona, with local garden expert and the Mountain Gardener himself, Ken Lane. Listen in every week for Ken's tips, tricks, and techniques that are guaranteed to make a difference in your yard this season.
Autumn grass is nice, but some are plume-tastic. Water's Regal Mist Grass is over-the-top plume-tastic.
You can count on this local native to plume without care for years.
These new arrivals are covered in knee-high pink plumes that withstand the feistiest of wind.
At just $14, you can afford to use them as decorations with pumpkins and gourds at the front door.
Waters Garden Center, 1815 Iron Springs Road in Prescott, where decorative grasses are absolutely plume-tastic. New to the area with your dream home on the inside, but surrounded by boring? A castle surrounded by rock is just so bland, but we can help.
At Waters, we have a team of plant experts ready to dress up and decorate even the most boring of landscapes with something fresh, new, and evergreen.
Plus, we deliver and plant for you.
Designer plants with the experts to help you beautify your new abode.
Waters Garden Center, 1815 Iron Springs Road in Prescott. Okay, we've got Lisa Waterslane back in the studio with us, and this is the inspiration segment. Just how do we get more beauty into the landscape by using plants or decor or fragrance, and so Lisa shares her opinion, her ideas, her garden style with us every week.
Yes. Sorry, you caught me off guard there. I'm used to you going on and on and on.
Well, I don't want to take up any more of your time than I have to, so I cut it short this week.
Okay.
What do you got for us?
Well, of course, we are moving into that wonderful holiday season, right? We've got, one more week before? How many days before
it's just
Thanksgiving?
days. We're days away. Thursday.
Yeah.
We're in.
And then it's like days until Christmas. I'm totally not ready this
Friday,
year.
we're talking, it's like Black Friday. Shop, do you drop? Amazon, here I come.
Of course, this time of year, you just get inundated with catalogs.
Yeah, of course.
It is amazing how many catalogs you get. I just almost feel paralyzed because it's like I don't know what to do.
No, your trash can does.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. It makes you want to just go take a hike somewhere.
Yeah, be outdoors.
Yeah, in nature, putting a pot together with some pansies and enjoying nature. But yeah. I digress. Anyways, so holiday season. So a lot of people like to do a living tree.
Okay, yeah.
Sure.
That's a trend that's been trending for the last 5 years, really. Since the downturn, we've sold more and more living trees than cut trees. We sell more living trees than cut trees anymore.
Mm-hmm. So I think a couple of reasons. I think a lot of people like the idea of being able to plant it later in their yard and add to their landscape. And I think a lot of people are just much more environmentally aware or friendly now. So they like the thought of planting it.
You know what I think it is? There's just a lot of new homes, and it looks
too.
bare out there, and they want to use their Christmas tree when they're all done.
That's probably very much true.
We're on a boom right now. So, but that's been the trend for the last 2, 3, 4 years. It's been as we're back. So So you got suggestions for us, or what?
Well, there's a lot of different types of trees that you can use. So I thought I'd start with the smallest and go up big.
So good. Living trees in the yard, you could use to decorate either on the front patio, a deck, or in the house.
Right.
And then transition it back out and plant it after the holidays.
You got it.
Small to tall. Love it.
And of course, I think the one I always think of, and I think because it's so traditional tree looking, is the Alberta spruce.
Yeah, cute.
And adorable because they are small. So you could use them to even decorate in the home. You could put them on buffets or tables, entryways, so many different ways to use them because you can get them in like tiny 1-gallon sizes. Or if you want to get big, you can get them up into the 10-gallon, 5-6 foot size.
Yeah.
Nice thing about them, if you have a small yard, to put them out into a yard or put into a container, they do excellent because they are slow growing. So you can put them in containers because they're not going to overgrow anytime soon.
That's the one you see famously on either side of the pillar, going to the front doors with a tree in it. That's Alberta spruce. Or either side of the garage, in a big pot, this head high, perfectly shaped cone, Christmas tree looking thing. That's Alberta spruce. Yeah. And they don't outgrow their space. They'll stay in there forever.
True.
So,
and a nice green color, very lush green color. So great to use. Buy several and decorate indoors with them, then take them back out. Really pretty, just cute little ones to use.
Cute as can be when you put some clear lights on them. Don't even plant them. Don't even move them out of their pot. Just put them by the front door in their grower's pot.
Yeah.
and just decorate them up. And it'll be fine. Water it a couple times a week. It'll be fine by the front door.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
So that's the smallest. What's the next size?
Next size up. Well, then it kind of takes a jump because there's the tiny ones, and then you kind of get to the biggers. But the other one that I really like is an Oregon green pine. This one is a cousin to the Austrian pine, and most people are familiar with the Austrians, and those are those great big guys with the long needles. Yeah. Beautiful tree for here, does very well, but it's a big tree, and unless you have a big yard, you're not going to have room for it. But the Oregon green, a little bit shorter needle, more compact. More dense, I guess I'd say. So it's not going to get overly huge. I think about 15 feet.
Yeah, that's about right. Yeah, mid-teens.
It's just a smaller tree, not truly a dwarf, but a smaller tree. It's going to fit nicely into those smaller yards that some people have now, especially in the newer homes.
Yeah. Oregon or the ponderosa, the native that grows wild here, that's a 80-foot tree, huge, 100-foot tree, huge, long needles. The next step from that is Austrian pine. It's also got a long needle, a little bit shorter than a ponderosa, but it holds its foliage right down to the ground, and it'll get 35, 40 feet tall. And then the Oregon green pine, you were just mentioning, that one gets up into the mid-teens, has even a little bit shorter needle, maybe 3 inches long instead of 5, but dense, just layers, very interesting green pine tree. It's very, very pretty. It would dress up really nicely with some red bows, some presents underneath. It'd make a nice holiday tree for sure.
Definitely. There's also a single needle pinyon pine, which is a cousin to our native pinyon pine. It's almost, if you like the Charlie Brown tree, this way.
Oh, that's harsh. It does look native-y, though. It's got a native feel, southwestern feel to it. Yeah.
Right. It's a slow grower, so it's going to be a smaller type tree for many, many, many years. But it kind of has a blue, longer definitely. Cast needle to it.
That's the one that they harvest the nuts from. Pinyon pine nuts. That's the one, and it grows here.
Right.
It's got a chubbier needle to it. We also have the regular native ponderosa or pinyon pine as well. So both, but compare the two. If you're going native, they're tough as can be.
Oh, definitely. But it's a very unique looking tree. I like it. Not everybody's going to like it, but it's pretty cool looking.
Yeah.
Of course, the Colorado spruce.
Classic, yeah.
That's your other traditional type tree. Most people, we have everything from the Fat Alberts, which is the much more blue, kind of whiter tree.
Yeah.
And then just the traditional Colorado spruce. And then we have some that are a little more greenish. You can't call them Colorado blue, but they're a Colorado spruce.
Yeah.
We have some Norway spruce.
That's green. Green as can be. Yeah, really green.
Very, very pretty. Scotch pine, which
that must be new. You just got them in, or I didn't know we had Scotch pine out there.
We do. We have some real pretty Scotch
I'll go
pine.
look at them after the show. That's
and I'm
good.
drawing a blank on how tall those get.
Scotch pine are kind of like a pinyon pine. So 20 by 15, something like that. Slow growing. Okay. So shorter needle, got more of a blue hue.
Right.
Many times I'll spec a Scotch pine in when I can't find a nice looking pinyon pine. They're equally tough, and the Scotch pine doesn't get the scale that the pinyon pines do.
Right.
So it's kind of like that. Same size as a large pinyon pine to be the same size.
Okay. Very, very pretty tree.
Yeah.
And then I was looking out there. We have some Spanish fir.
Yeah, aren't those pretty?
Those are very unique looking trees. I can't even figure out how to describe them on the radio.
Well, I can do that for you.
Well, you are a man of many words. Go ahead, dear.
Spanish fir. What's interesting, they're related to the conicolor fir. It grows wild at the upper elevations on the mountaintops here in Arizona. It's a direct cousin of that. But the Spanish fir grows at the same elevation, but it has green needles, and the needles come out 360 degrees, and that's why it gives it that a branch will come out, then a branch the needles will come out of the branch, and the branches are coming out all the way around it like a starlight, star cluster. Whereas most fir have this swooping sideways needle branch pattern to it. Spanish fir has this 360 starburst look.
It's really
Makes
cool.
it very unusual. Very drought hardy. Those Scotch pine, pinyon pines, the Spanish fir you're going to kill those by overwatering them. So if you plant those, use them, great. Go outside, but don't make sure that soil drains. And I'll go into that next segment, kind of how to plant maybe. So,
Okay.
Ken and Lisa Lane and the Mountain Gardeners. Good segment. We'll be right back.
The Mountain Gardener, your source for garden advice right for the higher elevation of Arizona with local garden expert and the Mountain Gardener himself, Ken Lane. Listen in every week for Ken's tips, tricks, and techniques that are guaranteed to make a difference in your yard this season.
Ouch! Oh man, another rock! Hi, I'm Rusty. You know, the shovel you're destroying trying to dig that hole? Sure, I get it. You got these beautiful plants at Waters Garden Center. Waters asked if they could plant them for you. But no, you had to do it yourself, even though they would plant, deliver, and guarantee your plants for 2 years. I hope I don't end up like that old pickaxe. Ouch! Prevent yard tool abuse. Waters Garden Center. They plant, deliver, and guarantee.
So living Christmas trees, evergreens, thick, bold green, blue, silvers coming through the landscape right now. So the fall plants are dropping their leaves, and so it exposes or shows off all the evergreens. And 20% of your landscape should be dedicated to evergreen plants, whether it's a leafy shrub like a red-tip photinia, cotoneasters, junipers, spreading junipers, cotoneaster again that's spread out, whatever that leafy evergreen thing is, or your traditional conifers, pine, spruce, cypress, cedars, junipers. There's some upright Italian cypress, Arizona cypress, a native that grows wild here. 20% of that landscape should be dedicated to evergreens. They're the anchors that hold your landscape together even in the dead of winter. So we've got a couple plants showing off right now. Your red trees, if it's got a large leaf, the leaf is larger than a silver dollar, and it's red right now, that is going to be your ornamental pears. So the maples are done. The ash, they're pretty well done. They've dropped. There's a lot of plants. The locusts, they're all completely naked right now. Elms are dropping their leaves like crazy. But the red one that's got a round-shaped, kind of glossy leaf, very bright red, that's going to be your ornamental pears. They are one of the last trees to turn red in the fall of the year. So they're kind of the announcement that we're done. Autumn is over. We're transitioning to winter now. That's it. And so they're one of the ones that as the days get shorter and shorter, they finally go, okay, that's it. There's not enough sunlight to keep going. I'm going to turn red. Going to sleep now. I'm going to hibernate for the next 2-3 months. And then next spring, they'll start blooming with this beautiful white flower in spring of next year, usually March, April. And then they just start all over again. So they bloom, set their green leaves. In November, they tend to turn that red color. Done. Even the bark is interesting on that. It's got a real light gray color, almost trends towards white. Very, very pretty. So it's a good tree, very drought hardy for the landscapes of northern Arizona. They're pretty versatile. They'll go from the very high desert all the way up to the highest peaks. Let's say Flagstaff, the White Mountains, Williams, that area. They'll easily take that 6,000-7,000 foot level. One that I particularly like, it's called red spire pear or ornamental pear. Yes, it's related to fruiting pears, but it's not truly it just doesn't put on the fruit. But it's red. It's got an intense red fall foliage that's so nice. It's kind of famous for its fall color. It's one of the select. It's a better selection. The most common one your grandparents planted, some very old specimens, are Bradford pears. They're all related. The other one that's also turning red, if the leaf is long and narrow, smaller than a silver dollar, that's going to be Chinese pistachio. That's a kind of looks like an ash, only with a much smaller leaf to it. Trends to red to purpley kind of colors. Very bright, very famous. A little bit smaller tree. Grows, maybe 20 feet tall. 12 feet wide. Kind of nice globe shape to it. Very drought hardy, very tough. But those are the two trees that are turning red right now. And they'll go into 1st of December, next 2-3 weeks. And then by that second weekend in December, it's over. All the leaves have dropped. This is when your evergreens take front and center stage. And so Lisa was sharing with us some of the best evergreens. This is an opportunity for you folks that are into the Christian folks that love the Christmas season, that holiday thing and gift giving, and a tree inside is your central theme. If you're doing cut trees, there's a shortage on the market right now. So prices have spiked up and then shipping costs go up. Trees I never thought they would reach this kind of expense. So it's almost of same value. For a little bit more money, you can buy a living tree for the cost of a cut tree that you'll use for a couple of weeks, 2-3 weeks, and you decorate it, throw it away, and it gets composted. You can have a living tree you can use in your house and then plant it outside after the holiday season. This is a very reasonable thing to do. I mean, you can do this, and it's economically better. I think it's environmentally better. I think it's better for your landscape, your pocketbook. You get more value out of it long term with this nice tree in the yard for decades to come. There's a way to plant it, though. And this is especially important for you folks out in the heavier clay soil. This is that 69 corridor, all those homes going in around the airport between Chino Valley, Prescott, the 89A, 89, 69 corridors, heavy clay soil with caliche. If you've got that, these evergreens, they like to be planted in winter. It's okay. No worries. But what happens is you put them in these heavy clay soils and it's cool out. By January 1st, after you're done with the holidays, you're going to go put it in the ground now. What happens is that soil's very cool and we can get some real wet seasons, some areas where we get this wet, soggy soil with snows that can bog the soils down. Evergreens do not like that. So that quail wood, pinyon oaks, the Grandville, all those areas that are new being built out right now, if you're planting an evergreen in that, go for it. Just realize what kind of soil you have, and here's a technique that will make a difference. It works for everyone, but especially the places that have heavy clay. You want to dig the soil. The hole's only going to be as deep as the root ball. That's it. Don't go down to China. Roots go sideways. The soil's so heavy, the roots can't go down. There's nothing down there for them to go after. So you're digging a hole that's 3 times the width of the root ball, round, kind of saucer shaped. When you take that soil, amend it heavily with some composted mulch. We call it premium mulch, but it's screened down pretty tight. It looks like a composted, like a mocha chocolate material. Blend about 30 to 40, 50% mulch to your native soil. What we're trying to do is change the structure of the soil so it doesn't compact back down to clay-like density. So if we put some nice organic particles in between all that clay, it can't compact down. Now the roots can get through it easier. They will drain better. The soil and water can get through it as better as well. So we physically change the structure of the soil. Secondly, don't ever plant that plant in a divot. Don't let it be in a hole. You want it to be at ground level, or I would suggest even a little above ground level, especially important for evergreens. You want to leave about 2-3 inches of the root ball out of the ground. And then mound all that extra dirt you have, mound up that soil up and cover up that exposed root ball so that the plant will be on a very slight mound. No one will see this except you. But it really helps. It's like leaving your nose up out of the water, out of a pool. It helps you to breathe. No matter how deep the water gets, you can at least have your nose out of the water, and plants appreciate that as well. So it'll keep your plant from drowning in March when you get some heavy, gooey rain and snow, or in the monsoon season. It helps those wet seasons. Secondly, when you're planting that, make sure you stake the plant. 2 lodge poles on either side of the plant. What happens is these evergreens can load up with snow that will come in January and February, first part of March. They'll load up with snow. They'll have 100, 150 pounds of snow on them, and they'll just cock over. They'll collapse. So you're staking these not for the wind so much. You're staking these for the snow that will come in midwinter. You just want to keep it upright. You don't want it to start rooting out and then load up with snow March 15th, and all of a sudden, boom, you break all those root hairs off. You just keep those stakes on for year 1, and then you take them off. You just want to get it rooted. but it's the heavy snows that come in the mountains of Arizona that cause it to cock over. When you get it all planted, water it in with root and grow. There's a rooting hormone that helps it. Water it in with that, and then fertilize it with all-purpose plant food. That's what's going to encourage it to form new candle buds, new candle growth for next spring. You're going to fertilize it with that granular food. That it will take that in and actually will use it to form next spring's growth. It'll start growing the end of March, first part of April. Then it really takes off. And then water that new tree a couple times a month. Deep soak it. Take a hose to it twice a month. That should be plenty. And that will keep it healthy, keep it moist, keep it going throughout that initial rooting season from the new year through April or so. And then you're back into your regular water schedule. And that's how you're going to plant an evergreen, living holiday tree in the landscape in the middle of winter, January 1, after the holidays. Be right back.
The Mountain Gardener, your source for garden advice right for the higher elevation of Arizona with local garden experts and the Mountain Gardener himself, Ken Lane. Listen in every week for Ken's tips, tricks, and techniques that are guaranteed to make a difference in your yard this season.
I was raised in a nice house with my family. Now I'm out on my own and have my own apartment. I love my cute little place, but there's something I do miss. I miss my mom's garden in the backyard. It was so special because over the years I was growing up, I watched her give those flowers and plants such a personal, loving touch and so much color. I miss it so. Well, guess what? I just visited my local garden center and they gave me some great ideas. And now, because of them, when I look out my patio window, I see the beautiful planter they suggested, teeming with flowers, bright Arizona flowers. Looking at those flowers gives me such a nice feeling, and it's almost like being with Mom in the backyard all over again.
Want help with planting? It's all online at plant-something.org. Brought to you by the Arizona Nursery Association at plant-something.org.
You'll love it too.
If new neighbors are encroaching on your privacy, we have just the solution.
At Waters, we have an entire section of thick, bold plants dedicated to privacy.
Fall is a time to plant a new privacy hedge, and we're here as advisors.
Take a quick measurement and snap a picture before you come visit, and you'll quickly be living in privacy once again.
Plus, our team of experts know how to plant to increase plant growth next spring. We'll show you how or do all the planting work for you.
Waters Garden Center. We know privacy in your backyard.
Now, the Christmas holiday plants are starting to show up. So we just got our Christmas cactus in. Now, some of these are very finite crops. You only grow enough to get through the next few weeks, and when you're out, that is completely it. There is no more at the well. So Christmas cactus especially you want to grab those early. So Christmas cactus is actually a cactus without thorns. Goes inside. They're in full bloom. We've timed them in pinks and whites and red flowers. Very tough, very hardy indoor plants that are famous for blooming every Christmas. Thus Christmas cactus. If that's of interest, if you're going to give some of those as a holiday gift, a hostess gift, something like that, or just for yourself, just treat yourself for $5.99, $10, whatever. You buy them early, because if you come in 2 weeks, second week in December, there won't be any left. They're all gone. It just depends on the ebbs and flows of the crops and customers and that kind of stuff. But just realize once they show up at the nursery, there's probably not. There maybe we'll reload one more time and then it's done. There's no more. You can't go back in January. There's just more there usually. So grab those crops now. And there's just beautiful crop of Christmas cactus just showed up. I would say the same thing with Christmas amaryllis. This humongous bulb that has this ginormous 3-foot tall flower that shows up. That's flowers as big as your head. Those come in. They're very limited crops. Narcissus is another one, or what do they call that? Anyway, narcissus, very fragrant bulb. They're programmed to bloom. We force them to bloom now so that you can show them off. Got something to do. Poinsettias. We've got our poinsettias showing up. The first crop is, Wednesday, I believe. Wednesday afternoon, they'll show up. That'll be right before Thanksgiving. They'll be one of our featured plants for Shop Small Saturday, that Saturday after Black Friday, after Thanksgiving. All the big retailers, the Walmarts and the Best Buys, those guys are going to hog all the customers that Thursday. Well, small businesses kind of get left out. And so American Express has come up with this Shop Small, support the small guys the following Saturday. Well, we're going to feature all of our holiday plants. They're 10% off. That's our featured thing that we're going to do. So support your small folks, but then just realize, don't just support them, buy your holiday plants early, because when the crop runs out, I think we'll reload 2 other times with poinsettias, no other times with Christmas cactus. Amaryllis, I don't remember when those, I think those might start showing up the Wednesday after Thanksgiving, something like that. Lots of crops coming in. I can't keep track of all of them. That's why I have good people. They make me look good. It's not me doing everything. It's my staff here at Waters Garden Center, at least. They're the ones that really do. They're the rubber meets the road doing the work, kind of stuff, the touch and feel of the garden center. I'm the voice, but they're the ones actually you interact with. They're the heroes here at small businesses. And so I give all the credit to them. So they kind of keep track of the crops too. They order as well. So just watch all that. This is the week of Thanksgiving. Enjoy family. Drive safe. Do all that stuff. Enjoy the moments. I know it can be frustrating sometimes sitting at the dinner table hearing the same stories. But you know what? Enjoy those. They aren't going to be around that much longer. So to take in family and friends, that this is a unique time to appreciate, not to look down on, but to look up and go and admire those close friends that are around you. At least that's what I try to do. Going, yeah, Grandma, I've heard that before. Yeah, I've heard that before. But you know what? I'm enjoying it through a new lens this year, because we don't get too many more years with you. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone. Till next week, Lisa and I camp out here at Waters Garden Center. We will be closed on Thanksgiving Day, but back at it bright and early Friday.
The Mountain Gardener, your source for garden advice right for the higher elevation of Arizona, with local garden expert and the Mountain Gardener himself, Ken Lane. Listen in every week for Ken's tips, tricks, and techniques that are guaranteed to make a difference in your yard this season.
In a new place, it's difficult to know who to trust, how to get help at the house, and which nursery will simply do what they say they'll do.
At Waters Garden Center, we're here to help, in the landscape at least.
Our team of plant ambassadors know your neighborhood, the plants that add color, increase privacy, and add fragrance and beauty.
And we can show you exactly how to plant locally, or we have teams to do all the work for you.
We are Ken and Lisa Lane, and we guarantee our plants will live up to every promise here at Waters Garden Center.
Hi, Ken here with the Plants of the Week and our McMinn Manzanita.
Part of Waters' expanding native selection, this is the big, bold manzanita you find growing throughout Arizona.
A local evergreen growing wild with the classic red bark for a styling, drought-hardy landscape.
Locally grown for local landscapes, this easy care shrub is just $39.
Waters Garden Center, 1815 Iron Springs Road in Prescott, where people who love lots of native plants, they love to shop.
You've been listening to local garden expert Ken Lane, the owner of Waters Garden Center in Prescott. Join him each week as he answers timely garden questions unique to the area. He can be found throughout the week at Waters Garden Center, located in Prescott at 1815 Iron Springs Road. Thanks for tuning in to The Mountain Gardener.